The first mistake I made was thinking humans were reasonable. My name is Keth9, and I used to be the Strategic Intelligence Coordinator for the Galactic Hegemony's Third Fleet. Used to be. Because after what happened at Kepler 442b, well, let's just say my career took a nosedive faster than a human kamikaze pilot, which, as it turns out, is exactly the problem. You see, we'd been monitoring this little blue-green marble called Earth for about 50 cycles. Standard protocol, really. New species emerges. Shows signs of interstellar capability. We send in the diplomats. If they are reasonable, they join the hegemony. If they are not, well, that's what the Third Fleet is for. But humans? Humans broke every single algorithm we had for predicting species behavior. The morning, everything went sideways, started like any other. I was reviewing intelligence reports in my command pod, sipping my morning nutrition paste, when Lieutenant Vex 12 burst through my door without announcing himself. That should have been my first warning sign. Vex 12 never forgot protocol. "Sir," he stammered, his purple skin flushed with anxiety. "The human delegation, they have arrived." I glanced at my chronometer. "They are 3 hours early. Eager to surrender, I suppose." "That's just it, sir." Vex 12's voice cracked. "They are not here to surrender." I paused mid-sip. "Excuse me. They are here to negotiate the terms of our withdrawal from their solar system." The nutrition paste suddenly tasted like cosmic dust. I set down my container and fixed Vex 12 with what I hoped was a stern look, though I suspect it came across more as confused constipation. "Let me understand this correctly. We have surrounded their planet with 12 dreadnoughts, each capable of glassing their entire surface 3 times over. We have demonstrated our superior technology by casually dismantling their international space station with a mining beam, and they want us to leave?" "Yes, sir. And they think we are going to negotiate?" "Apparently so, sir." I rubbed my temples with 3 of my 4 hands. "Send them to conference room 7. And Vex 12? Double the security detail." "Already done, sir, though they did make one unusual request." "Which was?" "They want to bring their coffee." 20 minutes later, I found myself sitting across from 3 of the most peculiar beings I'd ever encountered. The lead human, a female who introduced herself as Admiral Kate Morgan, had arranged herself in what I later learned was called a power pose, leaning back in her chair with her feet propped up on our conference table. The audacity alone should have been grounds for immediate vaporization. The second human, a male named Dr. Ben Torres, was frantically scribbling notes on what appeared to be actual paper. Paper! As if we were living in the primitive ages. The third, introduced simply as Tank, which I assumed was a designation rather than a name, though with humans you never could tell, said nothing and maintained what could only be described as a predatory smile. "So," Admiral Morgan began, taking a long sip from her primitive thermal container, "let's cut through the bureaucratic nonsense, shall we? You want our planet? We want you gone. Seems like we have ourselves a good old-fashioned Mexican standoff." I blinked all 4 of my eyes in sequence. "I'm sorry, what's a Mexican standoff?" "It's when 2 parties have weapons pointed at each other, and nobody wants to be the first to pull the trigger. But we have 12 dreadnoughts," I pointed out. "You have, what? Primitive chemical rockets?" Dr. Torres looked up from his notes. "Actually, we have been busy these past few weeks. Tank, would you like to show them?" Tank's grin widened as he activated a small device. Suddenly, the air above the conference table shimmered, and a holographic display appeared showing something that made my blood turn cold. "What am I looking at?" I managed to whisper. "That," said Admiral Morgan cheerfully, "is the Yellowstone caldera. You know, that big volcanic system in North America. Tank here used to be a demolitions expert before he got into geology. Funny how skills transfer, isn't it?" I stared at the display. The readings were impossible. "You have turned your entire planet into a bomb?" "Not the entire planet," Dr. Torres corrected. "Just the parts that matter. Yellowstone, the Toba system in Indonesia, Mount Vesuvius, the Siberian traps. We have been quite busy little bees, haven't we?" Tank finally spoke, his voice carrying the kind of casual menace usually reserved for apex predators. "Synchronized detonation sequence is already programmed. Dead man's switch is active. If our heartbeats stop broadcasting on the agreed frequencies, or if your ships fire so much as a warning shot, well, let's just say you will have a front row seat to the most spectacular fireworks show in galactic history." I felt my secondary stomach lurch. "You are bluffing. No species would destroy their own homeworld just to spite an invasion force." Admiral Morgan's laugh was like breaking glass. "Oh, honey, you really don't know humans at all, do you? Ben, tell him about the scorched earth policy." Dr. Torres cleared his throat. Throughout human history, when faced with superior invasion forces, we have consistently chosen to destroy everything of value rather than let it fall into enemy hands. We burned Moscow rather than let Napoleon have it. We demolished our own infrastructure rather than let the Germans use it. Hell, we have nuked ourselves just to see what would happen. The point being, Admiral Morgan continued, that we are perfectly comfortable with mutually assured destruction. In fact, we are kind of experts at it. So here's our counter-proposal. You leave our solar system within the next 72 hours, or we turn Earth into the biggest space debris field this side of the Andromeda Galaxy. I was quiet for a long moment, trying to process what I was hearing. In all my cycles of service, across hundreds of species negotiations, I had never encountered anything quite like this. Most civilizations, when faced with overwhelming force, chose survival over pride. It was basic evolutionary logic. You are insane, I finally said. Probably, Admiral Morgan agreed, but we are also very, very serious. Tank, show him the backup plan. The holographic display shifted, showing what appeared to be a massive space-based construction project hidden on the far side of Earth's moon. Project Prometheus, Dr. Torres explained with academic enthusiasm. Antimatter manufacturing facility. We have been studying your ship's propulsion systems from the debris you left after that little demonstration of yours. Fascinating technology, really. We are particularly interested in your containment fields. Tank's grin reached disturbing proportions. Turns out, if you reverse the polarity and overload the magnetic constrictors, antimatter becomes incredibly unstable. Weaponizable, you might say. I felt the blood drain from my face. You have weaponized antimatter. That's forbidden by 17 different galactic treaties. Funny thing about treaties, Admiral Morgan said, refilling her coffee cup from a thermal flask. They only apply to species that signed them, and since you never bothered to actually invite us to your little galactic club before showing up with warships, the implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I was beginning to understand why the Third Fleet's predictive algorithms had failed so spectacularly. They were based on the assumption that species valued self-preservation above all else. Humans, apparently, valued spite just as highly. Let me make sure I understand, I said slowly. If we attack, you will destroy your own planet. If we stay, you will attack us with weaponized antimatter. And if we leave, you will… What? Promise to play nice. Oh, we will play nice, Admiral Morgan assured me. Right up until the moment you try to come back. Then we will demonstrate why Earth mammals spent millions of years eating things bigger than themselves. Dr. Torres leaned forward. There's also option 4, which we haven't mentioned yet. Which is, Tank activated another holographic display. This one showed star charts, with red markers scattered across multiple systems. We have already launched unmanned probes to 17 hegemony worlds, Dr. Torres explained, conversationally. Each one carries a complete database of human warfare tactics, weapon schematics, and what we like to call aggressive diplomatic techniques. If anything happens to Earth, those probes will begin broadcasting on all frequencies to every inhabited world in their respective systems. I stared at the star map in growing horror. You are going to teach other species how to fight us. We prefer to think of it as sharing educational resources, Admiral Morgan said. After all, knowledge should be free, don't you think? And we have such fascinating knowledge to share. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, the fine art of making improvised explosives from common household chemicals, economic warfare, Dr. Torres added helpfully, psychological operations, cyber warfare, biological weapons development, the complete works of Sun Tzu, Tank concluded, and a few additions of our own. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's life support systems. I found myself staring at 3 beings who had just casually threatened to destabilize the entire galactic order, and they were discussing it like they were planning a dinner party. This is madness, I whispered. This is humanity, Admiral Morgan corrected. We don't do surrender, Admiral Keth 9. We do extinction events. The question is, do you want to be a participant or a spectator? I looked at each of them in turn. Admiral Morgan, sipping her coffee with the casual confidence of someone who held the power to end worlds. Dr. Torres, still taking notes like this, was a fascinating research project. Tank, whose smile suggested he was genuinely hoping I'd choose violence. For the first time in my career, I found myself genuinely afraid of a species we could theoretically crush without breaking stride, because I was beginning to realize that theoretically was doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. I need to consult with my superiors, I said. Of course you do, Admiral Morgan said pleasantly. You have 68 hours and 14 minutes remaining. Oh, and Admiral, you might want to mention to your superiors that we have been monitoring your communications since you arrived. We know about the 4th and 5th fleets en route to reinforce you. We have prepared accordingly. My blood turned to ice water. How could you possibly? Dr. Boyce used to work for something called the National Security Agency, she explained. Turns out when you are paranoid enough to spy on your own species for decades, learning to crack alien encryption is surprisingly straightforward. Dr. Torres looked up from his notes. Your security protocols are actually quite sophisticated. It took us almost 3 whole days to break them. Tank's contribution was more direct. We know where your fleets are, where they are going, and how long it will take them to get here. We also know about the planet-killer weapon the Fifth Fleet is carrying, the one you think we don't know about. I was beyond fear now. I was entering territory that didn't have a name in any language I knew. Impossible, I breathed. Improbable, Admiral Morgan corrected. But then again, so is a species that builds nuclear weapons before they invent reliable space travel. So is a civilization that spends more on warfare than food production. So is a planet where the dominant species' favorite form of entertainment involves watching other members of their species hit each other with sticks while wearing protective gear. She leaned forward, and for the first time I saw something genuinely dangerous in her eyes. You want to know what's really impossible, Admiral? The idea that you could show up at our planet, threaten our children, and expect us to roll over like good little pets. That's not how humans work. That's not how we have ever worked. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Finally, I stood up on shaking legs. I will convey your message to the fleet commander. You do that, Admiral Morgan said, returning to her coffee. Oh, and Admiral, when you are talking to your boss, you might want to mention that we have been studying your species' biology as well as your technology. Tank, show him the special project. Tank's grin became absolutely feral as he activated one final holographic display. This one showed what appeared to be a laboratory, where human scientists in protective gear were working with something that made my skin crawl just looking at it. Biological warfare, Dr. Torres explained matter-of-factly, specifically targeted to hegemony physiology. We have identified 17 different pathogens that would be absolutely devastating to your species, but completely harmless to humans. Amazing what you can accomplish when you put your mind to it. Tank leaned back in his chair. Aerosol delivery system is already tested and ready for deployment. One word from any of us, and every hegemony world within 50 light-years gets a very special care package. I backed toward the door, my legs no longer entirely under my control. 68 hours, Admiral Morgan called after me. Don't be late. As the door sealed behind me, I heard the sound of human laughter echoing through the corridor. It was not a comforting sound. I stumbled back to my command pod in a daze, trying to process what had just happened. In the space of one meeting, everything I thought I knew about warfare, diplomacy, and basic sanity had been turned upside down and set on fire. Vex 12 was waiting for me, practically vibrating with anxiety. Sir, how did the negotiations go? I stared at him for a long moment, then walked to my communications console and opened a priority channel to Fleet Command. This is Admiral Keth 9 to Fleet Command. I need to speak with High Admiral Zork Prime immediately. Priority Alpha Alpha Black. Sir, Vex 12's voice was barely a whisper. What happened in there? I turned to look at him, and I knew my expression must have been something to behold, because he actually took a step backward. Vex 12, I said quietly, I think we may have made a terrible mistake. The communication console chimed, indicating that High Admiral Zork Prime was standing by. I took a deep breath, knowing that what I was about to report would change everything. But first, I had one question that needed answering. Vex 12, in all our intelligence gathering on human behavior, did anyone ever mention that they consider self-destruction a viable military tactic? No, sir. Our psychological profiles indicated they were a survival-oriented species. And did anyone mention that they have spent their entire recorded history perfecting the art of killing things bigger than themselves? No, sir. The reports focused on their technological development and social structures. I nodded grimly. That's what I thought. Get me everything we have on human military history. Everything. I have a feeling we are going to need it. As Vex 12 hurried away, I opened the communication channel to High Admiral Zork Prime. His image appeared on the screen, all 4 eyes focused on me with the kind of attention that usually preceded either a promotion or a court-martial. Report, Admiral Keth 9. I took one more deep breath, knowing that the next few words were going to define not just my career, but possibly the future of the Galactic Hegemony itself. Sir, I began, we have a problem. High Admiral Zork Prime's face went through several interesting color changes as I delivered my report. By the end, his normally pristine purple complexion had shifted to a sickly green that reminded me of contaminated algae. Let me understand this correctly, he said, his voice carrying the kind of calm that preceded volcanic eruptions. A species that hasn't even achieved basic faster-than-light travel has threatened to destroy their own planet, weaponize antimatter, spread military intelligence to our enemies, and deploy biological weapons against us, all because we politely asked them to surrender. That's essentially correct, sir, and you believe these threats are credible. I thought about Tank's smile, Admiral Morgan's casual confidence, and Dr. Torres's scientific enthusiasm for mass destruction. Sir, with absolute certainty, yes. High Admiral Zork Prime was quiet for a long moment. In the background, I could hear the familiar sounds of the command center on the flagship Inevitable Victory. Ironic name, considering the circumstances. Admiral Keth 9, in your professional opinion, what would happen if we simply called their bluff and proceeded with the invasion? They would detonate their planet, sir, without hesitation, and if we withdrew and returned with overwhelming force, they would teach every species in the galaxy how to do exactly what they just did to us, sir, except next time, there would be hundreds of worlds doing it simultaneously. Another long pause. I could practically hear the gears grinding in the High Admiral's head as he tried to process a situation that violated every principle of military logic he'd ever learned. Admiral, are you telling me that this species has achieved something no other civilization in galactic history has managed? Which is, sir, they have made surrender more dangerous than victory. Before I could respond, my console erupted in alarms. Vex 12 came running in, clutching a datapad and looking like he'd seen a ghost. Sir, priority alert from the sensor array. What now? I asked, though I suspected I didn't want to know. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the inner system. Something's happening near the human homeworld. High Admiral Zork Prime leaned forward. Put me through to the sensor operator. The screen split, showing both the High Admiral and Lieutenant Quex 7, our best sensor technician. Quex 7's normally steady hands were shaking as he worked his controls. Report, the High Admiral ordered. Sir, we are detecting what appears to be a coordinated launch sequence from multiple points on the planet's surface. Hundreds of objects, possibly thousands, accelerating toward the outer system at velocities that should be impossible for their technology level. I felt my blood turn cold. Impossible how? They are achieving 0.75 light speed, sir. Our intelligence indicated their fastest vessels could barely reach 0.01 light speed. High Admiral Zork Prime's expression darkened. Are they attacking our fleet? No, sir. The trajectories are, well, they are heading in all directions, toward every major hegemony system within 100 light years. The implications hit me like a cargo hauler. They are not waiting for us to make a decision. They are implementing their contingency plan right now. My communication console chimed with an incoming transmission. The caller ID showed it was coming from the human delegation. Admiral Keth 9, came Admiral Morgan's cheerful voice. I hope you are having a productive conversation with your superiors. Just wanted to let you know we have moved to Phase 2 of our diplomatic initiative. What's Phase 2? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. Well, since you seem to be having trouble making a decision, we thought we'd help speed things along. We have just launched our educational outreach program to every inhabited system in your little empire. Each probe contains everything a growing civilization needs to know about asymmetric warfare, including detailed instructions on how to build nuclear weapons from readily available materials. High Admiral Zork Prime's face went completely white. You are teaching primitives how to build nuclear weapons? Oh, we are teaching them much more than that. Dr. Torres's voice chimed in. Nuclear is so last century. We are including fusion bomb designs, antimatter containment theory, biological warfare techniques, cyber attack protocols, and Tank's personal favorite, how to turn any civilian spacecraft into a kinetic weapon. Tank's voice carried clearly through the comm. Nothing says leave us alone like a cargo freighter traveling at 90% light speed. This is insane. High Admiral Zork Prime exploded. You are destabilizing the entire galaxy. We are leveling the playing field, Admiral Morgan corrected. See, the problem with your little empire is that it's built on the assumption that might makes right. Well, we are about to make everyone mighty. Should be interesting to see how that works out for you. I stared at the communication console in horror. How many systems? Oh, we are thorough, Dr. Torres said. 473 inhabited systems to be precise. Each probe will arrive within the next 36 hours and begin broadcasting on all frequencies. We have even included helpful instructional videos. Instructional videos? Tank insisted on doing the weapons demonstrations personally, Admiral Morgan explained. He has such a talent for making complex concepts accessible to primitive minds. High Admiral Zork Prime was turning an alarming shade of purple. This is an act of war against the entire galactic hegemony.
Actually, came a new voice from the human delegation. This is an act of education. I'm General Sarah Phillips, by the way. I handle the legal aspects of our diplomatic initiatives. Legal aspects? I managed to croak. Under Galactic Law Section 847, subsection 12, any species has the right to share technological and educational information with other species, provided said information is not used to directly attack hegemony assets. We are not attacking anyone, we are just sharing. You are teaching them to build weapons of mass destruction. We are teaching them to defend themselves, General Phillips corrected. What they choose to defend themselves against is entirely up to them. The communication went quiet for a moment. Then Admiral Morgan's voice returned, carrying a note of genuine amusement. "Oh, and Admiral Keth-9? You might want to check your long-range sensors again. I think you are about to have some unexpected visitors." I looked at Vex-12, who was already working frantically at his console. His face went pale, then green, then a color I didn't recognize. "Sir," he whispered, "we are detecting massive fleet movements throughout hegemony space. Hundreds of ships, all heading toward hegemony core systems. Whose ships?" High Admiral Zork Prime demanded. "Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match any known hegemony vessels, but they are definitely artificial. And, sir, they are moving fast. Faster than should be possible for non-hegemony technology." I closed my eyes, finally understanding the full scope of what the humans had done. They didn't just send instructional materials, they sent propulsion technology. Bingo! Admiral Morgan's voice was positively gleeful. "Amazing what you can accomplish when you are not worried about patent law. We have basically given every species in the galaxy the keys to the kingdom. Faster than light travel, advanced weapon systems, defensive technologies, everything they need to become full participants in galactic civilization, whether the hegemony wants them to be or not," Dr. Torres added helpfully. High Admiral Zork Prime was staring at his tactical display with the expression of someone watching their entire worldview collapse in real time. This is unprecedented. The balance of power is about to become a lot more balanced," General Phillips finished. "That was rather the point." "Sir," Vex-12 interrupted, "I'm receiving priority communications from 17 different hegemony worlds. They are all reporting the same thing: massive civil unrest, primitive species demanding representation in the Galactic Council, and what appears to be coordinated attacks on hegemony administrative centers." "They are not attacking," Admiral Morgan corrected. "They are protesting. We also included a comprehensive guide to non-violent resistance. Hunger strikes, work stoppages, peaceful demonstrations, though I suspect some of them might interpret peaceful a bit more creatively than we intended." Tank's laughter rumbled through the comming, especially the ones who paid attention to the section on improvised explosives. I looked at High Admiral Zork Prime's image on the screen. The most powerful military commander in the galaxy looked like he was having an existential crisis. "Sir," I said quietly, "I believe we may need to consider a strategic withdrawal." "Withdrawal?" His voice cracked. "From one system, from this entire sector, sir, possibly from this entire spiral arm." Before he could respond, another alarm went off. This time it was the proximity alert. "Sir," Vex-12 practically shouted, "we have incoming vessels, multiple contacts, closing fast." The main display activated, showing tactical readouts of our surrounding space. What I saw made my knees go weak. We were surrounded, not by human ships, but by vessels from dozens of different species, crude, primitive-looking craft that had no business being in deep space, let alone moving at speeds that rivaled our own fleet. "Admiral Morgan," I said into the comm, "what are those ships?" "Oh, those are your new neighbors. Seems like everyone wants to come to the party. We have been broadcasting your location on all frequencies, along with an open invitation for anyone interested in diplomatic discussions to come join us." "You have turned our fleet into a diplomatic conference?" "We have turned your fleet into a teaching opportunity," she corrected. "All those species you have been keeping under your thumb, they have questions, lots and lots of questions." One of the approaching vessels hailed us. The voice that came through the common was harsh, guttural, and absolutely furious. "Hegemony warships, this is Commander Grak of the Thelian Liberation Front. We demand immediate discussion of independence terms." Another voice joined in. "This is Captain Yix of the Corlean Resistance. We require immediate cessation of tribute payments." Then another, "Zephyrian Free Navy to Hegemony Fleet. We demand representation in the Galactic Council." Within minutes we were receiving hails from 47 different species, all making demands, all armed with technology they shouldn't have had, and all clearly inspired by what they'd learned from the human instruction manuals. High Admiral Zork Prime looked like he was about to have a nervous breakdown. "This is madness. You can't just give advanced technology to primitives." "Why not?" Admiral Morgan asked. "You did it. You have been using superior technology to keep everyone else in line for centuries. We just leveled the playing field. But the stability, the order. Whose order?" General Phillips asked pointedly. Whose stability? Funny how galactic peace always seems to benefit the people who already have all the power. I watched the tactical display as more and more ships arrived. The space around our fleet was becoming crowded with vessels representing species I'd never heard of, all of them clearly spoiling for a fight. Sir, I said to High Admiral Zork Prime, we need to make a decision. Soon. He stared at the display for a long moment, his expression cycling through anger, disbelief, and finally something that might have been resignation. What do you recommend, Admiral? I looked at the tactical display, showing our 12 dreadnoughts surrounded by over 200 primitive but surprisingly well-armed vessels. I thought about the human delegation, calmly sipping coffee while they orchestrated the collapse of galactic civilization as we knew it. I thought about the probes carrying military technology to hundreds of worlds and the massive fleet movements throughout hegemony space. I recommend we withdraw, sir, immediately. Withdraw from the entire system, from the entire sector, sir. And I recommend we send a message to all hegemony fleets, avoid human space at all costs. High Admiral Zork Prime was quiet for so long I thought the connection had been lost. Admiral Keth 9, he finally said, are you telling me that a single primitive species has just ended the galactic hegemony? I thought about that question, about the cascade of events that had started with a simple demand for surrender and ended with the entire galaxy in revolt. About the humans' casual willingness to destroy themselves rather than submit, about their cheerful determination to spread that same willingness to every species in the galaxy. No, sir, I said finally, I'm telling you that a single primitive species has just taught the entire galaxy how to say no. The communication console chimed one more time. Admiral Morgan's voice came through, carrying a note of genuine warmth. Admiral Keth 9, before you go I wanted to thank you. Thank me. For what? For being reasonable, for listening, for not doing something stupid that would have forced us to get creative with our response options. You are welcome, I suppose. Oh, and Admiral, when you get back to your superiors, you might want to suggest they consider a new approach to galactic diplomacy, because the old way, the way where you show up with big ships and demand submission, that's not going to work anymore. I looked at the tactical display one more time, at the growing crowd of newly empowered species, all armed with human-designed weapons and human-inspired determination, at the probes carrying revolution to hundreds of worlds, at the cascade of events that had transformed a routine conquest into a galactic uprising. I will be sure to mention that, I said. Excellent. Oh, and Admiral, next time you are in the neighborhood, feel free to stop by for coffee. We will be here. The transmission ended, leaving me staring at a tactical display that showed the end of everything the galactic hegemony had built over the past 3,000 years. Orders, sir. Vex 12 asked quietly. I looked at High Admiral Zork Prime's image on the screen. He looked like he'd aged several decades in the past hour. Begin withdrawal procedures, he said quietly. All ships retreat to the edge of the system and send a message to Fleet Command. Operation Submission is hereby terminated. What should I tell them about the humans, sir? High Admiral Zork Prime was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had just watched his entire world change forever. Tell them that humanity has just taught the galaxy the most dangerous lesson in the universe, that there are things worse than death, and submission is one of them. As our fleet began its withdrawal, I took one last look at the blue-green world that had just reshaped galactic civilization. Somewhere down there, Admiral Morgan was probably refilling her coffee cup, Dr. Torres was taking notes on the effectiveness of their strategy, and Tank was planning the next phase of what they cheerfully called aggressive diplomacy. Three beings who had just ended an empire over coffee and conversation. The humans were right about one thing. They didn't do surrender. They did extinction events, and they'd just made the galactic hegemony extinct. As we jumped to hyperspace, I couldn't help but wonder what other lessons humanity had to teach the galaxy. Given what I'd learned about their approach to problem solving, I suspected we were all about to find out, whether we wanted to or not.